like I won't give up my U.S. West Direct Yellow Pages. It looks like this because I use it. It's the only place I find exactly what I want. These U.S. West Direct folks have been around a long time. I use their book because it's the only one I feel comfortable with.
U.S. West Direct, the one that gets used.
This is your TV station, Fine TV.
We can't show you what's happening in those Palestinian refugee camps that are under siege in Beirut, but we can bring you the reports of some of those who are living through the horror.
We are desperately short of some medicine. We have now about 25 critical patients, many of whom will die if we do not receive the medicine. People are beginning to starve. They have been eating cats and dogs, and some children were seen eating a rat.
Good evening, I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. It is a story of human tragedy in a setting of political anarchy. What's happening these days in Beirut? That's our focus tonight.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
We have a tendency to look at Lebanon's problems only through our own sometimes distorted prism. In recent months, when we have reported on events in Lebanon, our focus has been the foreign hostages, primarily the Americans. But Lebanon itself is a shattered country, with religious and political factions stirring chaos into anarchy. The capital of Beirut has been divided for years by the so-called Green Line, Christians in East Beirut, Muslims in the West. But the current round of fighting is between different Muslim factions. The Palestinians, those who are now under siege in the refugee camps of Shatila and Burj al-Barajni, they are Sunni Muslims. They are under attack by Amal militiamen, who are Shiite Muslims. Nor is the fighting limited to Beirut. It's also underway further south along the Mediterranean coast, at Sidon and Tyre. This latest round of Palestinian Shiite fighting has produced almost 600 deaths and roughly 1,500 wounded. And that does not begin to take into account the suffering of the civilians in the besieged camps. Here, with more background and with eyewitness accounts of what is happening inside those camps, is one of our most experienced reporters in covering the Lebanon story, Charles Glass.
These are the Palestinian refugee camps in Beirut that Yasser Arafat and his fighters left behind in 1982. He left them undefended after receiving an American guarantee that Lebanon's 500,000 Palestinian civilians would be protected. Since then, the Palestinians have been attacked repeatedly. First, Israel broke its part of the U.S.-sponsored agreement and invaded Muslim West Beirut, permitting Christian militiamen to commit the now notorious Sabra and Shatila massacres. The suffering of Beirut's Palestinians did not end, though they had a 2-year rest during which U.S. Marines and Italian troops of the multinational force guarded the camps. When Beirut descended into chaos in 1984, the multinationals withdrew and the Palestinian civilians were on their own. To protect them, but also to reestablish Lebanon as a base of operations against Israel, Palestinian commandos began filtering back. But the protection was a provocation to Amal, the mainstream Lebanese Shiite movement headed by Nabi Berri, which did not want to share power with the P.L.O. It was also a challenge to Syria's President Hafez al-Assad, who after the Israeli invasion had determined that he and not Yasser Arafat would dominate the P.L.O. and hold sway in Lebanon. Battles erupted in May 1985 between the Palestinians and Amal, encouraged by Syria. Since then, the fighting has never stopped for long. Much of the world looked at Lebanon purely in terms of airplane hijacking, as during the TWA crisis at the height of the first P.L.O.-Amal battle, and in terms of the kidnapping of foreign hostages, most recently Church of England hostage mediator Terry Waite. The West has tended to ignore the suffering of civilians who find themselves increasingly caught up between the rival ambitions of their self-proclaimed leaders. Today, nearly 20,000 Palestinian civilians are themselves hostage in the Beirut camps of Shatila and Borja-Barajni. For more than 100 days, Palestinian camps in Beirut, in Sidon, and in Tyre have been under siege. No food or medical supplies have been allowed in. Today's attempt, the most recent of many by the United Nations, to use these trucks to take food and medicine into the camps, failed when Shiite militiamen stopped the convoy. In Beirut's largest camp, Borja-Barajni, British Dr. Pauline Cutting told ABC News by special radio phone the shortages were now critical.
People are beginning to starve, and every day we see tens of patients in the hospital who have problems related to malnutrition, especially the pregnant women and the women with babies. 2 babies were born this week prematurely and died because their mothers were suffering malnutrition. The camp can't go on. They have been eating cats and dogs, and some children were seen eating a rat. But as yet, nobody has eaten any human flesh.
Dr. Cutting said electricity was cut off last November, and the camp was relying on a generator to light the underground operating theater. Today, she said, fuel for the generator ran out. Vital operations on the wounded will be performed by candlelight. Dr. Chris Janu, a Canadian in the nearby Shatila camp, said that despite the suffering, the Palestinian civilians were trying to remain human in inhuman conditions.
I would imagine that human beings, whatever they are in a difficult situation, whatever the culture, whatever the country, there are always a couple of parents that wish to write poetry. What is remarkable here is that people take the time to actually read poetry.
From outside the camps, where anywhere between 500 and 2,000 people have died, it is impossible to see the suffering on people's faces. But from inside, they tell us that the water is now contaminated, that they risk their lives if they go above ground, and that people who do go out to cut grass to eat are shot. Some children have managed to escape. They have found their way to the Mar Elias refugee camp nearby, a Palestinian camp in a Druze part of the patchwork of militia-controlled neighborhoods that is Beirut. If the Palestinians are suffering at Shiite hands, many Shiites are victims too. Shiite slums near the camps are subject to artillery bombardments from Palestinian positions in the Druze mountains overlooking Beirut. And in South Lebanon, Israel today added its firepower to the battle once again by bombing Palestinians in the Mia refugee camp near Sidon. In Damascus, negotiations have been continuing for 3 months to bring an end to the fighting. Syria, Libya, and Iran have all tried to present their peace plans, but so far all of them have failed. Ted?
What is it that is making a negotiated settlement so difficult, Charles?
Well, there are several things. The outstanding issue, first of all, who's going to dominate Beirut? Is it going to be the P.L.O. or is it going to be Syria through its ally Amal? And the second thing, of course, is that no one's really negotiating with Yasser Arafat. Everyone else is invited to Damascus for talks, but Arafat, whose forces represent perhaps 75% of the Palestinian fighting power, isn't allowed to go to Damascus because of his relations with President Hafiz Assad. So really, the Syrians and Amal aren't negotiating with anybody.
And the people who are actually doing the fighting inside those camps, I mean, we're not talking only about civilians in those camps. There are still fighters in those camps. They are Arafat's men?
They're mostly Arafat's men in Beirut and in South Lebanon, with a smattering of the other Palestinian groups, but by far the majority are Arafat people.
So would it be fair to say if they don't do a deal with Arafat, there is no deal?
If they don't do a deal with Yasser Arafat to end this fighting, and that would involve some kind of compromise probably for Syria, which Syria would find unacceptable, then there can't be any end to this fighting.
Charles Glass, thank you. Later, we'll be talking with Lebanon's ambassador to the United States, Abdullah Bouhabib. But first, when we come back, the issue of the military role played by the camps under siege. We'll be joined by the Palestine Liberation Organization's representative at the United Nations, Zehdi Terzi.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Ace Hardware.
Ace is the place you come to for everything you're looking for. Ace is the place that lends a helping hand. Ace is the place.
Ace is the place for Amarok deadbolt and entry locks, just $5.44 each.
Ace is the place.
An Ace Clean Sweep corn broom for $2.99. Ace label kitchen trash bags for just $1.57.
Ace is the place with the help of hardware men.
Something on your mind? Like Valentine's Day? How about diamond? Oh, let's make that diamonds.
Where'd you get it?
The very affordable Valentine collection.
5 letters beginning with Z.
Zales 14-karat gold and diamond jewelry, $69.99 to $100.99.
Whose turn?
Mine.
The thrills continue on the next Lifestyles. Join Robert Wagner on a Big Apple night on the town with True Love, Jules St. John. Then, a galaxy of superstars on the second part of our dramatic series of the Beverly Hills Hotel. Plus, Brooke Shields, Lorenzo Lamas, and Dr. Ruth Westheimer take a special look at Canada's multi-billion-dollar preparations for the '88 Olympics. All on the next Lifestyle.
Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, Saturday nights at 11:30 on 5 TV.
Has it arrived in your home? The 16-page catalog from Homemakers East and Homemakers West. Look for the greatest furniture values you've ever seen. This sofa by Alan White is only $388. Real savings on Lazy Boy sofa sleepers. Brass and glass tables are only $99. It's all here at the lowest prices you'll find anywhere. Thomasville furniture, Sealy Posturepedic mattresses, Chrome Craft dinettes, Lazy Boy recliners. Buy now, no payments, no interest till May. Homemakers East and Hubble, Homemakers West on Douglas, Iowa's largest furniture stores.
These people have something in common. All were ABC News Person of the Week. Friday we'll choose again, and who it is may surprise you. Watch World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Joining us live from our New York studios is Zehdi Terzi, permanent observer at the United Nations for the Palestine Liberation Organization. How can this horrible human suffering be brought to an end?
Well, the human element seems to have been lost in those who are besieging the camps and in those who support them and keep providing them with further artillery and tanks. The only way is that everybody should be human and that relations directly with the legitimate authority of Lebanon, namely with President Gemayel and the Palestine Liberation Organization, should be conducted, these negotiations, and to find a peaceful way out.
It seems to me that one peaceful way out, it may be a totally unacceptable way, would be for the fighters inside to agree to leave the camps.
Well, wait, Mr. Koppel, I mean, don't run into conclusions. Now, somebody has also to provide safeguards. At the beginning of the program, it was stated that the United States government in 1982 had undertaken to provide those safeguards to our people in the Lebanon, but those safeguards were never assured, and the safeguards were never forthcoming.
Mr. Terzi, you are being somewhat selective in what you're picking out of there. Indeed, the initial safeguards were provided. The Palestinian fighters were escorted safely out of Lebanon.
Yeah, what about their people, about their families? The safeguards refer very clearly to the families of those people as well.
No, I understand, but if, somehow this particular tragedy has got to be brought to an end, then there are the much larger, more complicated issues which have absolutely besieged the country of Lebanon now for so many years. But to bring this particular crisis to an end, would that not do it if the fighters
Yeah, but who's going to guarantee the safety of the families and the children there?
Well, you're a permanent observer at the UN. Is the UN the organization that can do it?
Well, the United Nations is duty bound. I mean, the refugee camps is the responsibility of the United Nations, and it's up to the United Nations, particularly the Security Council, to come out in the clear and declare exactly and precisely who is responsible for the failure of the United Nations to carry out with its mission. And for example, the latest of the events was that some agreement was reached today between the Commissioner of the United Nations Relief and Works Agency and Mr. Nabih Berri that there should be a 12-hour ceasefire where the wounded and the needy could be taken out of the camps and food supplies would be brought in. But at the last minute, Mr. Berri, according to information we received from the UN, has reneged on that promise and insisted on maintaining the siege and the bombing of the camps.
Again, your information may be better than mine, and truth is certainly one of the victims of what is happening in Lebanon, but the version of the story I got was that Nabih Berri was insisting that if food and supplies were to go into those refugee camps, that UNRWA would also have to bring in an equal amount of food and supplies to some of the Shiite villages that were surrounding the camps and that have themselves been hit by artillery fire and mortar fire.
Well, my understanding from the United Nations Secretary General is that relief work was to be forthcoming to everybody, not exclusively to the Palestinians. That was my understanding from the Secretary General at 5:30 this evening.
So in theory that should still be a possibility, right?
Well, it is a fact that even the Palestine Liberation Organization, when Chairman Arafat offered the Secretary General of the UN our contribution, we did not specify that it should be for the Palestinians exclusively, but it should go to all the needy in the area. I mean, we do realize that the suffering knows no boundaries and no limits.
Tell me something. What is the political goal of what is happening there? What is the goal of the P.L.O. in these camps? Beyond mere survival at this point.
Well, our goal is survival until such time as the question of the Palestine refugees would be settled in accordance with the decisions and the concepts of the international community and the norms of international relations. And what is the aim of the Shiites under Mr. Berri, apparently, is to create a Shiite sort of a Shiite sub-state or mini-state within Lebanon and fragment the Lebanon and undermine its sovereignty and integrity. So to create those sectarian, what you would say call fiefdoms, is sort of out of fashion, but that's his aim.
Is it naive to suggest that the Lebanese government could somehow help here?
Well, the Lebanese government, under the presidency of His Excellency President Amin Gemayel, is trying its utmost, but it's under some external influence. It's being handicapped, and its efforts are being sort of thwarted by external interference.
You're talking about the Syrians?
Oh, yes.
Mr. Terzi, I thank you very much for joining us this evening, and I truly hope in the interest of humanity that those poor people can be helped.
We too. Thank you,
sir. When we return, we'll be joined by the Lebanese ambassador to the United States, Abdullah Bouhabib.
Of all the movies you can see this year, see Platoon, nominated for 8 Academy Awards, including Best Picture of the Year, Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and 2 nominations for Best Supporting Actor. See the first real movie about the war in Vietnam, the movie all America is talking about. Platoon, rated R. Now playing at a theater near you. Check newspapers for times.
I can't get air.
Before and Afrin.
It worked.
For relief without drowsiness or jitters, Afrin's the spray doctors and pharmacists recommend most.
Stuffed.
Before and Afrin.
The tax laws are changing. The deductions on interest are changing. So maybe you should apply for a card that doesn't charge interest. The American Express card. Apply over the phone by calling 1-800-THE-CARD.
This is the week on Star Search 87, the Round 1 semifinals. Every week, every new star has faced overwhelming odds to become one of 2 semifinalists in every category. And this week, they go head-to-head for one win only, the one win that sends them to the $100,000 finals. Who will survive on the way to stardom?
Incredible show to finish.
Star Search this Sunday at 12:20 on 5 TV.
Is your furniture mismatched? I mean, does your furniture really clash? Now stop that. We'll bring peace to your room at Krolof's Furniture. We'll help you coordinate colors, styles, and solve all your decorating problems. Best of all, you're going to love our prices. Krolof's, 5900 Southeast 14th.
I want to know who that woman is and where she is.
Woman, what woman?
The woman who was with my brother the day my mother died.
You weren't with Blake the day of the fire. And how would you know that?
Next, on Dynasty.
Blake, I don't think even you can buy your way out of this.
I won't have to. By the way, Alexis, what is the penalty for perjury?
Clay's out at that hillside right over there.
Dynasty, weekday mornings at 11 on 5 TV.
On The Health Show with Kathleen Sullivan, how other people's smoking could endanger you. Plus a runner's guide to dressing warmly. Saturday at 12:30, 11:30 Central and Pacific.
Why is the TV show America so controversial? Who's offended by the miniseries and why? Tomorrow, the debate over America here on Good Morning America.
With us now live from his home in Washington is the Lebanese ambassador to the United States, Abdullah Bouhabib, who returned from a visit to Lebanon 2 weeks ago. Mr. Ambassador, your government appears to be on the horns of a terrible dilemma, unwilling to accept assistance from outside and unable to resolve the problem internally. What do you do?
Oh, we are willing to accept assistance from outside.
From whom?
From anybody, in fact. You know, our problem is that from the beginning of the war, 12 years ago, everybody has been negotiating with the various factional leaders and weakening the central government. I enjoyed listening to Mr. Terzi saying that, that the central government should be in charge, but I wish he said it 12 years ago. When the war started then. So we have a problem in Lebanon. We need help, and we need the help of the international community, and we need the cooperation of regional powers.
Now, how are you going to bring those regional powers into, for example, let's take the situation at hand. The terrible situation in those 2 refugee camps, and of course there are similar situations in refugee camps to the south in Sidon and Tyre. How do you bring that to an end, and which regional powers would you bring into it?
Well, we're talking now, Palestinians are a regional power now, and the Syrians are there involved as well as us, the Lebanese. We have to discuss it through the central government. And even when you talk about international assistance to the camps, has to come through central government. And the international community, through the United Nations, has to recognize that the central government is the only substitute to this mess that is taking place presently in 10 square kilometers of Lebanon only.
But when you talk about the Syrians, for example, or the Palestinians, and you might just as well have added Amal, the Shiites, you're talking not only about those who have the capacity to resolve the problem or present a solution, they are a part of the problem. Now, is it possible for a solution to be externally imposed because every negotiated solution over the last several years has broken down?
Well, that's true, Ted. A lot of negotiated solutions broke down for various reasons. But now Beirut is becoming a terror place for the whole world. And not only for the Palestinians, we've seen tonight what's happening to them, but also for you, for us Lebanese who have been hostages for the last 12 years. There is a need for some kind of work from the international community. The international community has been disregarding Lebanon. And I want to say that there is serious discussion going on with the various Lebanese factions and the central government, as well as with the Syrians and the central government.
Mr. Ambassador, you don't really believe that words are going to change this, do you? Would a substantial United Nations force be of any use in Lebanon?
Well, something is going to happen. I don't know if UN force, it has to be agreeable to all parties. Otherwise, it would be like sitting ducks, like the Marines were there, or like any other force would go there.
Yeah, but if anything were agreeable to all the parties, you could come to some kind of a negotiated settlement. It's precisely the fact that the parties can't agree on anything.
Yeah, but you see, the international community did not make its presence there, never took a decision to do something in Lebanon. They were all on the side trying to take into consideration even the regional, not regional, also local factions, the local leaders, what they say. There's something need to be done from the international community.
And that would be what? The support of the central government, and does that support have to take the form of manpower and arms?
Well, then, once there is the intention, then we start the discussion. The central government is the only safety for the Palestinians and for the Lebanese and for everybody in Lebanon. Nobody is safe in Lebanon. Nobody has been safe since the last 12 years, since the kind of the fall of the central government, its inability to protect the people. And the militias or the forces that were created in Lebanon were not able to even to protect their own people. Only the central government can do this job.
Although it has been woefully lacking in that capacity over the past 12 years.
That's true. 12 years ago we had a very small army. We were a peaceful country. We thought if we are no threat to anybody, nobody would be threat to us. That was a wrong assumption. But we have not had another opportunity since then, and that's what we need. We need another opportunity to start again. We have a stronger army, but still the forces, the powers that exist in the country are stronger than us. When a major country like United States or like other European countries or regional powers, they negotiate with foreign countries to solve a problem in Lebanon, this is, I think, weakening the central government and creating or multiplying the problems that we have.
Ambassador, I thank you very much. Ambassador Bouhabib, it was very good of you to let us come and join you in your home tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. When we come back, we would like to spend a moment telling you about one of our colleagues, Jules Bergman, ABC News science editor, who died today.
In 1894, a three-man research agency was created to test electrical wiring. In the decades that followed, it tested and set safety standards for products the world over. Its name, Underwriters Laboratories. Who created Underwriters Laboratories? You're going to be surprised. Your insurance company. We do a lot more than sell insurance.
Decide on which German luxury sedan best suits you. Just remember, the Audi runs in only the best of circles. If you want performance and handling in a German luxury sedan, you're ready for an Audi.
Let's see, Milano for Charlie, Bordeaux for Terence, and Gladys. Dark chocolate and pecans of Geneva. Pepperidge Farm distinctive cookies inspire fierce loyalty. Everybody thinks their favorite is the best. You're right. Party's not till tomorrow. Tragic era.
My friend Jules Bergman died today. He was only 57, and he had worked for ABC News for 33 years. He was one of the hardest working reporters I've ever known in my life, and one of the best informed. During the course of nearly 26 years as this network's science editor, he reported on medicine, the environment, nuclear technology. But most of all, he reported on his own first love, flying and space. He was a terrific pilot himself, but in more ways than one, he was starstruck by the exploration of space. He was the first and always one of the best television reporters on space.
The day will be remembered as the beginning, the day the United States first tasted space.
2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
3 plus 17 minutes into this Gemini 4 launch. We should be getting ready for the America's first EVA, extravehicular activity, with Major White due to get out of the spacecraft over Hawaii.
After 7 years and $25 billion, Apollo is ready to begin tackling the moon.
It's called the Lunar Jeep or the Explorer, and it's the thought I'd show you the glove Conrad's now helping Bean get. The F-111 flies well enough, but is still short on power. And
Okay, the cable's clear? The cable is clear and taut.
It's clear.
Okay.
Ready to go.
Let go.
when it works. Thank God there's a net. One space expert who worked on the shuttle and asked that he not be named called the first flight a random success. Whether that's true or not, the Columbia's second mission is all the more important to prove just how safe the shuttle really is. Jules Bergman, ABC News at the Kennedy Space Center.
What you've just watched over these past few seconds encompasses most of the lifetime of this network, the entire lifetime of the U.S. manned space program, and the career of an American television pioneer, Jules Bergman. Tomorrow, watch World News Tonight, but for tonight, that's our report. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This is your TV station, 5 TV.